Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Captain Shane Craig. We warmly welcome Air Commodore Peter McDermott, retired, Vice President of the Air Force Association. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Frank Edgar Everatt. Frank Everatt was born in the town of Narrogin in Western Australia on the 4th of May 1924, the son of Edgar and Jane Everatt. His father was a clerk with the Agricultural Bank in Narrogin, and growing up he had two sisters, Gladys and Monica. In 1932, when Frank was 8 years old, his father killed himself with a rifle after suffering from depression. It was 7 years before his mother remarried, this time to James Plum. Everatt attended Narrogin State School and Albany High School. After leaving school, he found work as a junior clerk with the government railways at Midland Junction. Everatt was eager to serve and joined the Air Training Corps at 17. A month after turning 18, on the 24th of June 1942, he enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force. He began training, and in July 1943, he was made sergeant and received his Air Gunner's badge. On the 30th of August 1943, Everatt embarked from Melbourne for overseas service, arriving in the United Kingdom in October. As part of the Empire Air Training Scheme, he was one of almost 27,500 Royal Australian Air Force pilots, navigators, wireless operators, air gunners and flight engineers who, throughout the course of the war, joined Royal Australian Air Force squadrons or Australian squadrons based in Britain. Further specialist training followed, and in January 1944, Everatt was promoted to Flight Sergeant. In October, he was posted to number 467 Squadron, Royal Australian Air Force. As part of the Bomber Command, the squadron flew the four-engined Avro Lancaster heavy bomber. On the night of the 2nd of February, Bomber Command mounted a slew of raids on targets in Germany, launching 1,200 aircraft. Some 250 were sent to bomb the town of Karlsruhe in Germany. Number 467 Squadron committed 19 aircraft. Flight Sergeant Everatt was a wireless operator and air gunner on Lancaster Papa Oscar Juliet, which took off from the Royal Air Force Base at Waddington at 7:51 p.m. Two of the squadron's Lancasters never returned, including Everatt's. It was later revealed that the aircraft had been shot down near the village of Karlsdorf, 12 miles east of the target. Also on board were Australians, Flying Officer James Inkster, Pilot Officer Alan Pearce, Warrant Officer Bertram Weber, and Flight Sergeants Frederick Bean and Philip Carter, along with British Airmen Flight Lieutenant Noel Colley and Sergeant Dennis Howdell. The bodies of the crews were recovered by the Germans and buried in a communal grave at the Karlsdorf Cemetery. After the war, the remains of Commonwealth servicemen buried in Europe were examined and identified where possible. The remains of Everatt, Carter and Pearce could not be identified, and so they were reinterred together some 270 kilometres away at Dernbach War Cemetery. Everatt's headstone bears the inscription, "Loved, remembered, longed for always." He was 20 years old. Everatt left behind a grieving fiancée in England. He was dearly missed by his family and friends back in Australia, who placed in memoriam notices in the newspapers after his death. Flight Sergeant Frank Everatt's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, along with some 40,000 others from the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Frank Edgar Everatt and all those Australians who gave their lives in service of our nation.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.